August 1944, the Western Front. An American armored column of Sherman tanks is cautiously advancing through the dense, fog-choked terrain of the French countryside. The crews are exhausted, operating on purely unfiltered adrenaline and black coffee. They know the German army is retreating, but they also know that a cornered enemy is incredibly dangerous. Suddenly, the lead American tank commander raises his hand, signaling the column to a dead halt. Through his binoculars, hidden in the tree line roughly 1,000 yards away, he spots a silhouette. At first glance, the sloped armor and the wide tracks make him think it is a German Panther tank. It is a formidable enemy, but something the Americans have learned how to fight. He orders his gunner to load a high-velocity 76mm armor-piercing round. They dial in the range, hold their breath, and fire. The American shell crosses the 1,000-yard gap in just over a second. It is a perfect, dead-center hit on the upper front plate of the German tank. But the explosion does not penetrate. Instead, a terrifying, high-pitched metallic shriek echoes across the valley as the 50-pound American projectile shatters into pieces, ricocheting harmlessly into the sky. The silhouette in the trees does not even flinch. And then, the fog shifts, and the American commander realizes his fatal mistake. It is not a Panther. It is obscenely large, standing almost 10 feet tall, casting a massive, terrifying shadow over the battlefield. The barrel protruding from its turret is so incredibly long and thick that it looks like it belongs on a heavy naval cruiser. The massive turret slowly, methodically rotates, the electric motors whining over the deep, rhythmic thumping of a V-12 engine. The massive gun barrel aligns dead center with the lead Sherman. A blinding flash of light erupts from the tree line. Before the sound of the gunshot even reaches the American column, a massive armor-piercing shell, moving at over 3,000 feet per second, completely annihilates the Sherman, punching cleanly through the front armor and violently tearing the turret off the hull. The surviving American crews throw their tanks into reverse in absolute panic, frantically radioing for heavy artillery and immediate air support. They had just encountered the Panzerkampfwagen Tiger Ausführung B, universally known and feared as the Tiger II, or the King Tiger. It was the heaviest, most heavily armored, and most lethal production tank to ever see combat in the Second World War. And it was a machine that absolutely nobody on the Allied side wanted to fight. If you want to know the dark, unfiltered truth about the ultimate apex predators of military history, you need to hit that subscribe button right now. We do not just read you the history books, we put you directly into the crosshairs. Type the word monster in the comments right now if you are ready to explore the terrifying reality of the King Tiger. To understand the sheer, uncompromising violence of the Tiger II, you have to understand the mind of Adolf Hitler in the late stages of the war. By 1943, the legendary Tiger I had already established itself as a nightmare for Allied tank crews. It was a brutal, box-like fortress of thick steel, but the arms race of the Second World War was moving at a terrifying speed. The Soviet Union had introduced the massive IS-2 heavy tank, armed with a 122mm gun that could crack a Tiger I wide open. The Germans realized that the flat, vertical armor of the Tiger I was becoming obsolete. They needed something invincible. They needed a tank that combined the overwhelming thickness of the Tiger I with the brilliant sloped ballistic design of the Panther. The mandate given to the legendary German manufacturing firms Henschel and Porsche was simple: build a tank that cannot be killed from the front by any weapon currently in existence, and arm it with a gun that can kill any enemy on Earth from beyond visual range. The resulting machine was a masterpiece of metallurgical arrogance. Let us talk about the armor, because the defensive capability of the Tiger II is what caused seasoned Allied veterans to simply refuse to engage it head-on. The upper front plate of the Tiger II was constructed of 150mm of Krupp rolled homogeneous steel. But unlike the Tiger I, this massive slab of steel was sloped backwards at a severe 50-degree angle. In the world of ballistic physics, sloping the armor drastically increases its effective thickness. When an incoming shell strikes a sloped plate, it has to travel through significantly more metal to penetrate the crew compartment, and the angle severely increases the chance of the shell simply skipping off the surface. The effective frontal armor thickness of the Tiger II was well over 230mm. It was a rolling bank vault. During the entire duration of the Second World War, there is not a single, fully documented, mathematically verified instance of an Allied tank successfully penetrating the front plate of a Tiger II in combat. Not one. You could fire the best American 76mm guns, the feared British 17-pounders, or the massive Soviet 122mm shells directly at its face, and the Tiger II would literally shrug them off. For an Allied tank crew, firing at a King Tiger was like throwing rocks at a concrete wall while waiting to be executed. But armor is only half of the terror. A fortress is only as deadly as its weapons, and the main gun mounted inside the massive turret of the Tiger II was a work of pure, unadulterated annihilation. It was armed with the 8.8-centimeter Kampfwagenkanone 43, the QAK 43L71. Do not let the 8.8-centimeter measurement fool you into thinking it was the same gun used on the Tiger I. This new gun was massively elongated, stretching over 20 feet long, designed with a significantly larger breaching mechanism to handle a phenomenally powerful propellant charge. When the gunner pulled the trigger, the massive armor-piercing capped ballistic shell left the barrel at a staggering muzzle velocity of 1,000 meters per second. The kinetic energy generated by this weapon was so extreme that the Tiger II could reliably destroy an American Sherman or a Soviet T-34 from a distance of over 2,500 meters. That is over a mile and a half away. At that range, the Allied tanks could not even see the King Tiger, let alone shoot back. The optics were crafted by Zeiss, providing the German gunners with crystal-clear magnification that allowed for terrifying, sniper-like precision. If a Tiger II locked you in its sights, your armor was completely irrelevant. The shell was coming through, and you were going to die. However, the universe demands balance, and the brutal reality of mechanical physics dictates that you cannot build an impenetrable, heavily armed supertank without paying a massive, catastrophic price. The fatal flaw of the Tiger II was not Soviet artillery or American air power. Its fatal flaw was gravity and friction. The sheer volume of steel required to make the tank invincible pushed its combat weight to an astonishing 68 metric tons. It was nearly 30 tons heavier than the American Sherman. And to move this massive steel mountain, the German engineers were forced to rely on the Maybach HL-230 V12 engine. This was a brilliant, sophisticated engine, but it was originally designed to power vehicles that weighed 45 tons. Bolting it into a 68-ton chassis was an act of absolute logistical suicide. The men who crewed the Tiger II lived in a state of constant, miserable anxiety, not because they feared the enemy, but because they feared their own machine. The engine had to be run at maximum revolutions just to get the massive tank moving at a walking pace. It was constantly overheating, constantly catching fire, and vibrating with such intensity that it would shatter fuel lines and blow gaskets. But the engine was a minor inconvenience compared to the nightmare of the final drives. The final drive is the transmission component that transfers the power from the engine to the tracks. The immense, crushing weight of the Tiger II, combined with the brutal torque required to turn the vehicle in mud or snow, routinely caused the final drives to literally explode. The gears would violently shear apart, filling the transmission housing with metal shrapnel and instantly immobilizing the tank. And then there was the fuel. A 68-ton tank requires an obscene amount of energy to overcome its own inertia. The Tiger II consumed fuel at an apocalyptic rate, burning over 500 liters of gasoline just to travel 100 kilometers on a paved road. If the tank was forced to drive off-road, through mud or rough terrain, the fuel consumption doubled. In late 1944 and 1945, the Allied strategic bombing campaign had completely obliterated the German synthetic fuel refineries. The German military was essentially running on fumes, delivering hundreds of liters of highly volatile aviation-grade fuel to a frontline heavy tank battalion, while American P-47 Thunderbolts were strafing every single supply truck on the road, was practically impossible. This mechanical fragility and logistical impossibility created a profoundly tragic reality for the elite German tank crews. They were handed the keys to the most powerful, heavily armored fighting vehicle on the face of the earth. They knew they could destroy entire platoons of enemy armor with impunity. But the vast majority of the nearly 500 Tiger IIs ever produced did not die in a glorious, fiery exchange of shells with the enemy. They died quietly, pathetically, at the hands of their own commanders. Imagine the bitter, soul-crushing reality. A German crew is holding a vital crossroad. They have easily destroyed 5 advancing Soviet tanks, but the order comes down to retreat. The driver puts the massive tank in gear, attempts to pivot, and a loud metallic crack echoes through the hull. The transmission is destroyed. The vehicle cannot move. You cannot tow a 68-ton tank out of the mud. No standard recovery vehicle is strong enough. With the enemy closing in, the crew is forced to abandon their invincible fortress. They drain the remaining fuel, place high explosive scuttling charges inside the turret and the engine bay, and run for their lives, blowing their magnificent machine into thousands of pieces of twisted steel. The Tiger II was the absolute pinnacle of German armored engineering, a terrifying beast born from a tactical doctrine that prioritized individual superiority over mass production and mechanical reliability. It was a tank that won every single engagement it fought in. Provided the engine started, the transmission held together, and the fuel tanks were full. But wars are not won in perfect conditions. Wars are won in the mud, in the snow, and at the end of a very long, very fragile supply line. The King Tiger was an unstoppable force that was eventually swallowed whole by the brutal mathematics of attrition warfare. It remains a legendary phantom of the battlefield, a machine that terrified every single man who ever had to look down the barrel of its gun, but a machine that ultimately could not outrun its own massive, impossible weight. If this deep dive into the absolute zenith of World War II heavy armor changed your perspective on military engineering, you have to hit the like button right now. Share this video with anyone who loves military history and the truth behind the legends. Make sure you subscribe and turn your notifications on so you never miss our intense, unfiltered breakdowns of the machines that shook the earth. I want to hear from you in the comments below. If you were an Allied tank commander, how would you have attempted to destroy a King Tiger, or would you have simply called for air support? I read every single comment, and I will see you in the next one.